$65 billion. That is not a typo. One man, one office, one lie, repeated every single day for 17 years. Banks trusted him. Governments trusted him. The richest people on earth handed him everything they had and smiled while they did it. And not one person asked the right question. Here is the thing about the Madoff fraud that stays with you long after the numbers stop shocking you. It wasn't complicated. It wasn't brilliant. It was a simple lie told to people who wanted so badly to believe it that they never asked the one question that would have ended it on day one. Can I see the actual trades? That question, 4 words, would have collapsed 17 years of fraud in an afternoon. But nobody asked, because the returns were good, because he was trusted, because asking would have felt impolite. $65 billion of politeness. The greatest financial crime in history wasn't built on genius. It was built on trust. And the lesson, the one that cost 37,000 people everything, is the same lesson it always is. Bernard Lawrence Madoff was born in Queens, New York, in 1938. Not rich, not connected, not special, at least not in any way that anyone could see yet. He started his investment firm in 1960 with $5,000 he had saved working as a lifeguard and installing sprinkler systems. His father-in-law lent him an additional $50,000. It was enough to begin. Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities opened its doors in a small office. Nothing impressive, nothing that suggested what was coming. But Madoff had something that most people in finance underestimate. He had charm, extraordinary charm, the kind that made powerful men feel like equals and ordinary men feel special. He moved through elite social circles with a confidence that felt earned because everyone assumed it was. He became chairman of NASDAQ. He advised the Securities and Exchange Commission on market regulation. He was not just respected, he was celebrated. The man who regulators turned to for advice was building the largest fraud in financial history underneath their feet. And nobody noticed, because nobody looked. The 17th floor of the Lipstick Building in Midtown Manhattan, that is where it happened. Upstairs, a legitimate trading business. Real employees, real trades, real money. The kind of operation that impressed any inspector who walked through the door. But on floor 17, a locked room, a handful of employees who had worked there for decades, old computers, paper ledgers, and the greatest lie in the history of money being typed out, printed, and mailed to clients every single month. The scheme was almost embarrassingly simple. New investors put money in. That money was used to pay returns to old investors. No actual investing was ever done. The accounts didn't exist. The trades didn't happen. The statements were fiction printed on real paper, mailed in real envelopes, believed completely by real people. What made Madoff different from every other fraudster was restraint. He never promised extraordinary returns. While other schemes promised 20, 30, 50%, Madoff offered a steady, boring, consistent 10 to 12% every year, without fail, in good markets and bad ones. That consistency was the trap. Real markets fluctuate. Real returns go up and down. Only one thing produces perfectly consistent returns every single year: a lie. One man saw it. A financial analyst named Harry Markopoulos submitted a detailed report to the SEC in 2000, proving mathematically that Madoff's returns were impossible. The SEC did nothing. He submitted again in 2001. Nothing. Again in 2005. Nothing. Again in 2007. Still nothing. The watchdog was asleep, and Madoff kept printing statements. September 2008. the global financial crisis hit like a sledgehammer. Markets collapsed, panic spread, and suddenly, every single one of Madoff's clients wanted their money back. At the same time, $7 billion in withdrawal requests arrived in the span of days. Madoff had $300 million in his account. The math was simple. The game was over. On December 10, 2008, Bernard Madoff called his two sons into his apartment. He told them everything. The investments, the returns, the clients, none of it was real. All of it was one giant lie that had gone on for 17 years and was now impossible to maintain. His sons called the FBI the same day. The next morning, federal agents knocked on Madoff's door. He answered it himself. He did not run. He did not deny it. He simply said yes. It was all a fraud. 37,000 victims across 136 countries. Pension funds destroyed. Charities wiped out. Elderly couples who had trusted Madoff with their entire life savings found themselves with nothing at an age when starting over was not an option. The Elie Wiesel Foundation for Humanity lost $15.2 million. Nobel Peace Prize laureate Elie Wiesel, a Holocaust survivor who had spent his life building something meaningful, destroyed by a man he trusted completely. Banks in Europe, hedge funds in America, universities, hospitals, individual families who had worked their entire lives, all of them gone. In June 2009, Bernard Madoff stood before a federal judge. He pleaded guilty to 11 counts of fraud, money laundering, perjury, and theft. He made no excuses. He offered no explanation that satisfied anyone. He simply said he was sorry to a room full of people whose lives he had taken apart with a printer and a lie. The sentence: 150 years in federal prison. The maximum possible. The judge said the sentence reflected, and I am paraphrasing, an extraordinarily evil crime. Madoff died in prison on April 14, 2021. He was 82 years old. Of the $65 billion